DeAngelo Hall is joining us, 15 years in the NFL, three-time Pro Bowler. So Troy Aikman came on the air, DeAngelo, and said this morning on Dallas radio. Let's take a listen. So let's address that. You've got friends who play for the Cowboys, friends who did play for the Cowboys. When you talk to players, did they think the Cowboys were kind of dysfunctional?
No one ever speaks against, I guess, Jerry Jones publicly, and I think that's part of the problem. I think no one wants to really piss him off, and to hear Troy say that, I always thought Troy was one of those guys who was kind of drinking the Kool-Aid, the Cowboy Kool-Aid.
Behind the rope.
Yeah, and so to hear him say that makes me think, wow, I've underestimated Troy's assessment, really of that organization, but for him to be that critical. Because most guys don't really talk about what happens, in Dallas. And I do think they're a little dysfunctional. I think we, as I say we, me being a former Redskin, we always get that, kind of that moniker as being
you
the
were dysfunctional
organization.
Right.
Yeah, the Redskins. Because, seemingly Dan Snyder always has his hands in the cookie jar.
Right.
I think as of lately, Dan's kind of stepped back. And now you see Jerry. And Jerry's kind of even more involved and always talking. And I understand he's technically the GM, but, like Troy said, at some point, we got to change the culture. And by changing the culture, it might mean, hey, Jerry, I know you love this thing, and this is your baby, but you got to take a step back and let's pay the guys to do their jobs, because I don't think they're being allowed to really do their jobs.
DeAngelo Hall, I think it's an interesting point. I mean, again, Washington was it's funny how you said Dan Snyder a step back. At the end of the Raiders run, people forget how great the Raiders were, 70s, 80s, 90s.
Yeah.
Al Davis did not age well, and became not only a meddler, but mental capacity shrank. Jerry's sharp as a tack. I'm not saying that. But I do think you make a great point. As an owner ages, Dan Snyder's becoming less meddling. Washington now. And then Dallas, Jerry is more meddling. Arthur Blank was not much of a meddler when you were in Atlanta.
No, he wasn't much of a meddler in a sense. he let the football guys do the football things. Arthur, I think what got him, especially having an athlete like Michael Vick when he took over that team, Arthur that is, he kind of gravitated towards Mike. And so I was kind of one of those guys right after Mike, a couple years after Mike got drafted. And so, we ate over at his house, me and my wife. And, Arthur was very receptive to us. We were young. I was 20 years old when I got drafted. So he almost felt as though he was a parent.
Sure, surrogate father, a parent. Yeah.
And Mike as well. Mike was young when he got drafted. But right after all that went down with Mike, Arthur kind of was like, look, I'm getting too close to these guys. I need to take a step back. So that kind of backed Arthur up in a sense. But Arthur never meddled when it came to football. He just really cared about the guys and the players that he was drafting.
Yeah, Jerry, meanwhile, thinks he's a football expert.
Yes, he does.
And there's your problems. By the way, you almost, speaking of great organizations, I don't know if you've told this story, you watched New England Sunday night. I mean, God, it's just the same machine.
Yeah, it keeps going.
It keeps going. You almost signed with them. I
did. And I didn't think the machine was that powerful back then. But, you take me back to 2008 when I actually
10 years ago.
Yeah, when I finished that half a season in Washington, and I was, kind of taking offers from different teams doing free agency. Well, actually right before free agency hit. So if this is tampering, I apologize for throwing anybody under the bus. But it was a little bit right before free agency hit, kind of how all the teams get on the phone, start hitting you up. And, my agent had kind of worked the deal out with New England, and their max offer was 3 years, $27 million, which was around $9 million average. And at the time, they had just gave Randy Moss, I think, that same deal, the year before. I can remember them telling me, like, look, we promised Randy we wouldn't pay anybody more than him. And so I'm sorry, but this is going to be our final offer. And I'm sitting there thinking, man, I kind of always had my head wrapped around 10 a year. I wanted to be at that 10 a year average. And, obviously Washington was a place that I had spent the second half of that season there. And so I was comfortable there.
Plus you went to Virginia Tech.
Yeah, I went to Virginia Tech. I grew up in Virginia. I always wanted to be a Redskin. And, had I known then what I know now, probably would have signed in New England and did those 3 years there. But just knowing me mentally and hearing all the stories about New England, I don't know if I would have been mentally tough enough to be that kind of player. The later I was in my career, I think I would have fit in perfect there. But I think I was still a little bit of a me guy at that point in my career. So, I mean, but when you see great guys like, Hall of Famers like Tom Brady and Randy Moss doing it the right way, maybe I would have just fell in line. But I don't know, man. And, everything happens for a reason.
Right.
A similar story. Even before I went to Washington to finish the year, I had an opportunity to go to Pittsburgh.
Oh, with Tomlin.
When I got cut from Oakland. And I've always known Mike Tomlin. He's from that 757 area of Virginia that I'm from. I'm a fan of his. I know him personally.
And you didn't go there either?
And I didn't go because Mike Tomlin, in his recruitment, it was look, we're going to let you return punts. We even, throw you on offense. It was to be more so of a gimmick guy. And I was like, man, I just got cut from Oakland after signing a $70 million contract. I got to let people know that I can still play corner and that I'm still a elite corner in this league. And so Mike wasn't really selling me on that. He was selling me on, we got some injuries. We'll work you in. And Washington was more so like, look, you're going to come in and fight for a starting spot. And I was like, all right, I got to go where I can play, Mike. I'm sorry. And then that team goes and wins the Super Bowl. So I just can't get a ring, man. I can't get a ring to save my life.
Dang. Well, I love stories like that.
Yeah, it's
well,
tough.
Could it be you had a hell of a career? You played for 15. You were a 3-time Pro Bowler, DeAngelo Hall. I was saying that there are statement wins and there are statement losses. Mm-hmm. Belichick's record after the bye is great. Andy Reid after the bye. Mike Tomlin after the bye. Sean Payton after the bye. Urban Meyer's 24-1 after a bye. Jason Garrett is sub 500 after a bye. DeAngelo, I'm watching Dallas last night. By the way, Tennessee was off a bye. Situationally, they were great. Third down, they were great. Red zone, they were great. I'm sorry, but you can't have 2 weeks to prepare and give me that. That was a nothing sandwich for 3.5 hours.
No, you're right, man. And I look at Jason Garrett, and I like him, and I want to root for him. As much as I really don't prefer Dallas, I mean, I like him. He's a former player. You want to root for him. He seems like a good guy. The guys in the locker room seem to like him. But they don't seem to play inspired football when I watch him play.
That's a good way to put it.
It was no sense of urgency.
No juice.
And I don't know if he's such a laid-back guy that he's too nice, and so the guys tend to run over him a little bit. I don't know because I'm not in that locker room. But, I mean, like you said, you had every opportunity to seize the moment. Earlier that day, you just found out the Redskins are losing all these starters, and they really haven't shown you that they can throw the ball downfield. You see Philly's right in front of you, and so you have a chance to make a statement, and you should have been prepared. But when I watch them, they just look vanilla. Like they never tried to move Zeke around. They tried to just run him straight downhill. That wasn't working. He caught the one big pass out the backfield, but I would have been trying to move Zeke all over the field. I felt like it was certain times in that game where they told Dak, look, throw the ball to Amari Cooper no matter what, because, I mean, even the first touchdown, Amari got open, but Allen Hurns was wide open in the back of the end zone. Like, you can't miss that. And to me, the interception was definitely one of those plays that he came out the huddle saying, I'm throwing this ball. It was a forced throw.
Yep.
Two guys on him. I just don't feel like Jason Garrett's really giving Dak a chance to succeed. When you think about even watching Jared Goff when he first played in the NFL his rookie year, we were like, gosh, this kid isn't very good. And then he gets with a guy like Sean McVay, and now we're like, man, Jared Goff is amazing. Like, he can make every throw. And so, to me, it shows how important that quarterback and coach relationship is,
yes.
A quarterback and play caller. And I just don't think Dak is really given the best opportunity to cultivate his talent, man. And it doesn't matter who you put out there. If you aren't changing the offense up and giving him, different looks and moving guys around and really scripting him for success, you can't just expect him to go out there and dice people up. That's not how today's NFL works.
Good stuff, DeAngelo Hall. For the record, Marcus Peters is remarkably talented.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
He got sizzled this weekend. It's okay. Saints are good. Thomas is great. And do we have the bye? I will give Marcus Peters credit. He was brutally honest after the game. Here's what he said. Let me ask you, How do you guys have a short memory? Did you ever just get smoked? Have a Sunday where you went home that day and you're like, man, I don't even want to go to film session Monday.
First off, I love Marcus Peters because most guys don't do that. Most guys don't stand up and say, hey, look, I was one of those guys that if I got beat, look, I got beat. I got to play better. I was one of those guys, too, that I didn't mind taking the blame when I didn't play well. And so for him to do that in front of the media, I was even told he went up in the meeting room and talked to the defense and said the same thing. Like, look, I'm going to play better. I have to play better. But it's just, I mean, you're kind of born with it. That's why people always ask, what does it take to be a good DB? Yeah, it takes good feet. It takes, toughness. You got to be able to hit. You got to do this. You got to do that. But more so than anything, it's a mindset. Like, it's a mindset that at the end of the day, it's me against you, and I'm going to win, period. And certain times you just meet a dude who's better than you.
On that day.
Yeah, I mean, Randy Moss was better than me on certain days. T.O. was better than me on certain days. Certain days I was better than him. And so it happens, you get beat, but, I mean, you got to forget about it. Because, Colin, at the end of the day, whether I make that play or not, say I get a pick, cool. I still got to go play another play. It's not like a fight where, you hit a guy, he's bleeding, he's hurting. I mean, it's football.
They ain't calling the fight. They call the fight.
They're not calling the game. You're going to have 4 more quarters. So whether you get a pick in the first quarter, you got to throw that out and keep playing. And so, you want to go out there and you want to make plays, but ultimately you understand those guys get paid too.
Yeah.
And that's the bigger picture. And, I never mind getting beat. Obviously, I didn't want to get beat, but I never mind because I learned something about myself and I learned something about that player. And as long as you learn something about that, I mean, Marcus Peters got beat on a double move. I'm sorry, not a double move. I'm thinking of Malcolm Butler. Malcolm Butler got beat on the double move. But Marcus Peters got beat just looking in the backfield. I mean, those are things that when you're looking at film, Marcus Peters can be brutally honest with himself and say, man, I can definitely play better than that.
Yeah.
Like, I had my eyes in the backfield right here. I jumped. I should have just kept running, go for the tackle instead of going for breaking the pass up. And so there's a lot of coaching moments through the course of a football game, and especially as DBs, man, we always critique every little thing because it is such a game of inches that, 2 more steps and then making that jump as a DB, you might tip that ball as opposed to, a 75-yard touchdown.
Well, I love DBs. I've had Kareem Jackson and you on the show today. I give my love. Wide receivers wear me out. DBs I always bring on the show. Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.